Hello there, sword friends. I'm going to talk a little bit, and well, I'm going to do a sword log vlog type thing. It's been a while since I've done one of these, and in effect, basically, I've just got a lot of swords, and I want to share them, but reviews take a lot of time, so I will review them or do something with them, but it's a good chance to share some of the cool stuff going on, and I will do that. First up is this one. This is a sword from Saber Smith, and I picked it up on Craigslist of all places. It's an interesting little thing. The lines actually are not bad, and it almost has hollow ground edges, which are interesting enough. It's a little overbuilt and meaty, but it actually feels pleasant. Stout in the hand for what it is, but given how beefy it looks, it's actually marginally more nimble than that. I don't know exactly what it weighs, but I do plan on doing some beating of this sword into other things, and we'll see how it holds up. I actually have a matching dagger as well, and overall I'm not necessarily displeased. There are things that this sword seems to do right that other people don't. The gap along where this blade meets the crossguard seems to be actually quite small, and the tolerances are pretty good. It's got a pommel that manages to add weight without really beating on my hand. At the same time, maybe it's a little too small. It's not necessarily historic, and I don't know, it looks a bit like a disco ball. The blade itself is a little bit awkward, and it's not super sharp, but I guess we'll see how it holds up when I whack it into things. Anyway, I've wanted to test one of their katanas for a long time because they often have this kind of hollow ground, weird geometry to them, and I'm just kind of fascinated at how well that would work for katana-type activities or proclivities. The next thing to talk about is this right here. This is a Hanwei Kama, and I don't know if they make these things anymore or not, but these I suppose are among the nicer Kama that you can buy. It has an interesting geometry. A lot of times when I see a Kama at a dojo, it has just kind of it doesn't really have this interesting geometry where it's flat on one side, there's a gradual taper that almost looks hollow ground, and then a flat back. They look a little bit more rudimentary when I spot them in the dojo, and oftentimes the dojo that I go to has a few different groups that go to it, and one of them are Kobudo, and I believe they use Kama in that system. Anyway, I don't know how to use it. It feels like I'm going to hurt myself, but it sure looks like a lot of fun. Another one that's well out of my wheelhouse is this giant thing right here, which is a piece from Windless. I can't remember what type of sword this is called, but it looks familiar to the one in Spartacus, where you have a double-edged blade, and you see you kind of reaching over the shield to poke the bad guy in the face area. Anyway, it's an interesting blade. It's really hardy, even in my giant sausage fingers. This is a stout, clunky blade. It's not really comfortable to hang on to. It feels like it wants to fly out of my hand, but I could see doing a little pokey poke. Anyway, at the same time, I have this thing. Now this is a special treat. This is a piece from John Ledemo. I don't know if I'm saying the man's name right or not, but the man that makes Odin blades, and basically this is the Saint Catherine, one of his kind of showcase pieces. It is absolutely pretty. I don't want to cut into my monitor too much over here, but there is a lot of activity to see in this blade. It is a pattern welded blade, and it just has this really interesting texture to it, and it's tough to actually describe. At some point I may end up reviewing it, but that day is not today. In any case, I hadn't really gotten a chance to play a lot with Odin blades before, and getting this one out, I can see why people like them so much. It is a delight to hold. It feels really well thought out. It's a complete work of art. It's absolutely beautiful, but it feels fantastic in the hands. Proportionally, it feels very comfortable to use with one hand, or if I get two hands, it's easy to get purchase on it and really smack a bitch up, I guess. Anyway, I haven't gotten a chance to play with it much. It's just been pretty and sitting on my wall at the moment, but in any case, it's absolutely pretty, and I like it, and at some point I may do a review and share it with you. The next thing to talk about is this. Now, this is not a new addition to my collection, but at the same time, I've gotten a lot of comments about why I'm not reviewing it. I'll review it when I'll do the other Conan swords at the same time. Things that just don't have a whole lot of positive things to say. It's well made and well manufactured. It's just dynamically, the sword is enormous. It's really heavy. It's pretty short for how big it is. All things that you've heard if you've heard anyone talk about the Conan sword. But other things, the handle is round, and dynamically, look at what it does to my hand. It just, if I were to hit anything with the sword, it would shake itself right out of my hand, because this is an 8-pound club. So I'll get to it, but I guess don't expect a whole lot of sass. The only guy capable of wielding this thing is Schwarzenegger, I guess, because for me it's just The next one I talk about is this right here. It's a bear-themed blade with custom mountings and fittings and all that. And supposedly this is a blade made by Chris Zhu. I've been unable to verify with Chris because he's a tricky man to get a hold of. He's in China and I don't speak Chinese and I don't know how to talk to him. Anyway, supposedly this was made about a decade ago by Chris Zhu, who's a well-regarded Chinese smith that makes katanas. You see his name associated with Musashi blades and whatnot, or at least he did for a time. But he makes a lot of other swords, and I don't exactly know how to verify it, that this was made by him or not. It is, however, a very pretty blade. It's just not in polish right now, so I am pondering sending this off to Josiah, the guy who's done a lot of polish work for me, to get the blade polished and really see what's underneath. I might take, while it's out of polish, a couple whacks at a tatami mat before I do that, just to see how well it cuts. But I'm venturing a guess that underneath here there's a pretty sword to be seen. In the realm of custom katanas, this guy is back. Some time ago, I ended up purchasing this sword back again, the Howard Clark 1086 katana. I have another 1086 blade to make. However, you can see that it's all sorts of pretty. It's got a lot of fun effects in the hamon here. Anyway, I sold it some years ago and I bought it back. I don't necessarily regret that, though. I kind of missed the sword. It's a fun one, and now that Swordfin Robert's actually gotten a chance to cut a few things with it, I don't feel as bad about cutting things with it myself. So we'll see how well it performs and if I can whack a mat with it or two. Continuing on, here's another custom sword. This is another Michael Bell katana. This one is fresh out of polish, and yeah, it's a cable steel polish with antique fittings and all sorts of stuff. Unfortunately, when I got it, the saya was a little bit dinged up, and I guess Gabriel had mounted it some years ago. That's Michael Bell's son. In any case, it's a very pretty blade, and at some point I might do a review or something on it, but that day isn't today. For the moment, it's going to sit in the case. It's a stout, meaty, hefty blade to move around. A real deliberate cutter, and it also has this pretty saya on it. Unfortunately, it's got some dings and pings in it now, but I really like the theme overall. This is one I'm not sure if I ever shared. It's an Anthony de Cristofano blade. Anthony de Cristofano is a pretty well-regarded swordsmith that makes mostly classic-style Japanese swords. The hamon is not popping out for whatever reason in this light, but I can assure you it's really quite pleasant to look at and see. Additional fun pieces that I have yet to review at some point are these two Highlander swords. So one is the Connor and one is the Duncan sword. So this is a sword from Texas, well, Point Gallery. I can't remember if it's Texas Steel Props or something like that, but this is the Highlander katana from Point Gallery. It's an early version and one that was made out of a Chris Cutlery sword. It's a little rough around the edges, but nevertheless is still a very pleasant sword to hang on to. I actually showed this to Adrian Paul when I went to the sword experience while it was in my area, and while the sword lacks some refinement in terms of its hamon and aesthetics, it's certainly a very durable blade. At one point I did have one of these Chris Cutlery katanas before it was stuck in this kind of Highlander piece. I can tell you that they're really quite durable blades. They're also pretty meaty. This is a stout blade. At some point I will do a review, but what I can tell you I immediately notice about this sword in contrast to the other is that the details are a little less crisp. And so it's not showing super well in my camera here. Super white. Okay, well, the thing is, if I compare this sword, which is an older one made by a company called Zeist Armory, I believe, this piece here is like a resonant, softer to the touch, but also all the detail in here makes it really just murderous on your hand. So all this detail is very crisp and clean, but you just feel it immediately with a glove, without a glove in your hand. This is just a very uncomfortable sword to hang on to. It's not comfortable to swing around at all. The next one I want to share is this, a Nagamaki or a Nodachi. I can't remember what it is. This is the cold steel one. Some years ago I had the Dynasty Forge piece like this, and what I can tell you is it is a fun, this is, you know, I talked about the Conan sword earlier. If Conan were a Japanese guy, this would be the sword. It is big, enormous, and just absolutely fun to wield around, but because it's, I don't know how to swing it. It's a little odd to move like a sword, and it doesn't have the same kind of point to move around like a nagamaki or a naginata. So I'm not sure exactly what to do. I didn't train with how to use this particular type of weapon. In any case, I look forward to playing with it a little bit because it's big and cool and fun, that's for sure. And lastly, I have one to share that I've lusted over for a very, very long time. This is the Albion Sovereign. And, well, in a nutshell, I had to trade my rapier for it, but I am really happy. I have wanted this sword for a long time, and every time one comes up secondhand, I kind of get beaten to the punch, or I just don't step up to the plate, and I'm not willing to pay the piper for the cost of the sword. They always seem to go for $1,000 or more when they're for sale secondhand, and it's just so close to the real retail that I can never quite justify doing that, not buying a new one. In any case, I got this on a trade, and I really, I was really nervous about not liking the way it felt, because I thought for sure I've had other Type 14 swords, and really I haven't been in love with them. The one I had from Arms and Armor felt a bit clubbish, and this one feels very nimble, very controllable, very, very fun to hold in the hand. It's a lot lighter and a lot more enjoyable than I expected. The grip has a nice little swell in it too. It just kind of rests there, or kind of finds a sweet spot in your palm, and it's really easy to grip and keep control of it. It's fun, really fun to move around. I like it dynamically more than I expected. What I'm not too happy about is this one has some minor imperfections in the blade. The little details that Albion, I guess, is known for getting right, this one doesn't necessarily have those right. The fullers terminate in marginally different ways and marginally different spots. The crossguard has more gap in it than I would say I've seen in other Albion swords. So the execution on this isn't great, and there's little pits and little inclusions from the casting on the hilt components that just aren't great. Little stains and things like that I can tell are not something that happened over the lifespan of this product, but likely was how it was when it was shipped out. So it's not the greatest. There are minor imperfections. Still, I really have to say I like the feel of it more, and that's the more important thing. The shape is one that I've just always been enamored with. I really think this is just a spectacular looking sword, but some of those minor details, I guess, trigger my OCD or something. In any case, I am super happy to actually have one now. This is one I think I'm going to hang on to actually for quite a while. That's it for this round of show and tell. I didn't plan on it being a round of show and tell, but that's what it turned into, and I appreciate you bearing with me. If you have any interesting thoughts or comments on any of the swords that I showed, please throw them in the commentary down below. Likewise, if you want me to review any of them, I do plan on doing a review on all of them, but who knows when I'll get to it. So if you want to stick one at the front of the line, let me know what it is and why. And in any case, that's all I've got for you. As always, cheers, and thanks for watching.